Hello and welcome to New Jersey Politics with Laura Jones. I am Laura Jones and we're so glad to have you here. There's a new bill making its way through the legislature in Trenton that would change how New Jersey double-checks election results. State Senator Andrew Zwicker is saying he wants to bring post-election audit process into the modern era with new tools and more transparency, and he's standing by. First, though, a disturbing investigation by NJ.com revealed that more than 100 coaches in New Jersey have been accused of sex crimes involving minors, and many were still allowed to work with kids. The report uncovered gaping holes in background checks, weak oversight, and little consistency across youth sports leagues. There's now a bill in the works to change that, and one of the sponsors is Assemblyman Jay Webber. He is my guest right now. Assemblyman, thank you so much for being here. Nice to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me, Laura.
Well, I want to start with your reaction. When you first read the findings of this investigation, the sheer number of coaches accused, system failures, no single set of rules for screening coaches, background checks, you know, the list goes on and on. What went through your mind and how did that translate into action?
Right. I mean, it's deeply disturbing. Frankly, angered me to see that so many coaches had gained exposure to our kids through youth sports over the last decade. Matt Stanmeyer, Keith Sargent at NJ.com did a great job putting this all together. Occasionally you read stories and it's anecdotal. You see a coach might be accused or indicted or convicted of a crime, but for the collection of these stories to come together and to be compiled in the database that NJ.com has produced really spurred some action. And so we looked at that and it said, clearly we can do something to stop this terrible trend that we see in New Jersey. And so I introduced a bill just this week to do a very simple thing, which I think will go a very long way, and that is require anybody who works with kids in sports, but also music lessons or other cultural activities, anytime an adult gets access to a child through an extracurricular activity, they have to do a criminal background check. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, but I think it'll go a long way to stopping this problem where we saw coaches, again, the report disclosed that these coaches were preying on kids, which is bad enough, but many of these coaches had either prior convictions or prior arrests or prior suspicions of inappropriate behavior, and they still got access to the kids. So stopping that, I think, is got to be a priority for the legislature, and I dropped a bill to do that.
Yeah, so back in 2018, you helped pass legislation to stop predators from moving between school districts. So how does the new bill expand the same kind of protection, as you mentioned, to youth sports? But I guess it really goes beyond, whether it's Girl Scouts, other things after school. What is the gap that you are trying to close?
Right. So we addressed a lot of the problems with sexual predators jumping from school to school by forcing them to disclose their previous employers and then forcing their previous employers to disclose the disciplinary history of teachers who are seeking jobs. That's got a long way. We need to do a little more on that front, but that went a long way to stopping a problem that we had seen in New Jersey. This problem has to do with stuff outside of school. Youth sports, clubs, little leagues, soccer, swimming, gymnastics, but also, as you mentioned, scouting, the piano teacher, right? If you're gonna entrust your child to a piano teacher and let them take lessons, the piano teacher ought to be able to demonstrate that he or she doesn't have a criminal background that would endanger the child, or certainly that you're comfortable leaving your kid with someone who's going to spend one-on-one time or a lot of time in close quarters with children. So this bill is really designed for those extracurricular activities. We've seen the proliferation of these sports clubs, tournaments, but also, again, anything. This could be a robotics club. It could be any extracurricular. Anytime an adult gets access to a child in any sort of organized way, there ought to be a criminal background check. These are easy. It's not a heavy lift for an adult or an organization to get a criminal background check. get a clean bill of health and give parents the confidence that they can send their kids to these extracurricular activities and without exposing them to adults who might prey on them.
Yeah, and one of the things the investigation made clear is there just isn't a consistency in how, when you're dealing with sports, how leagues are checking the people who are coaching our kids. Some run background checks, some don't. So how does your bill fix that? What is the standard that it sets?
Right. I mean, it's a great point. You know, Little League International, for example, I'm a volunteer Little League coach. They do a great job of requiring background checks for every coach every year. It's easy enough for the coach to click on a button on an internet site. You consent to the background check. The league runs it, comes back. You can coach the kids. I'm sure there's great protections in the larger organized soccer leagues and swimming and USA Basketball. I'm sure these organizations have good procedures. It's the kind of the more unregulated clubs, the for-profit enterprises, and private instruction. Tennis instructors, for example, Sargent and Stanmeyer pointed out there was tennis instructors or soccer instructors, could be martial arts instructors, for example, who might not have the same governing bodies that they respond to or are governed by. So for those people, including and the league in soccer and swimming and basketball, the large organizations, every volunteer or paid employee, every organizer of a team or a tournament has to get a criminal background check. It's pretty simple. It's a request to the state police to run the check. It comes back in several days. It's not very expensive and certainly well worth the safety of our kids to do that. So the hope is that where these gaps have been, especially with the private clubs and the private instructors, not so much the large organizations that we're very familiar with, like Little League, but the private clubs, et cetera. This should bring some uniformity to that for certainly youth sports, but again, any adult who gets access to children.
Yeah, one other thing that is just coming to my mind is a lot of organizations or their after-school programs that are run solely on volunteers. A lot of times a PTA, a PTO, they'll have a program. You know, my district, when my kids, they had something called After the Bell, and they had other people coming in. So would it apply to volunteers, whether you're a room parent going on field trips? Does the legislation go that far to
Yes.
anybody who is interacting with our children?
Sure, it has to, right? You can't allow people to evade this background check simply by refusing to accept some compensation. So it would apply to volunteers. It would apply to paid coaches. I think importantly, it would apply to organizers of these teams and puts real teeth into it. You know, if you're an organizer of a club, an activity, even a tournament or something, and you don't get background checks for everybody who's participating, you're going to be responsible. I think civil fines are appropriate that escalate and could be very expensive if you don't do the appropriate background checks. And then more importantly, I think if you're a criminal, someone who has a criminal background and is seeking to coach kids and evades this criminal background check, lies about it, simply doesn't get it, and then participates in either a volunteer activity or paid coaching, that ought to be a crime. If you're disqualified from coaching by your criminal background and you do it anyway, that itself is a crime. And so that's what my bill does. I think it has real teeth, and I hope it advances quickly in the legislature.
Well, one of the first stories I covered when I was first starting out as a reporter was sadly the death of Megan Kanka. The young girl in Hamilton Township was killed by a sex offender living across the street, which led to the passage of Megan's Law, which is a national registry for sex offenders. What the report showed is that not all predators are showing up on that sex offender registry, Megan's Law, and it has some serious gaps. Does your bill look at that? Does it go beyond that and offer some more protection?
Yeah, I think the insight from the report really led me away from trying to rely on databases. Databases are difficult to maintain. They are inconsistent between organizations, and I wouldn't want to rely on a database that is prepared specifically to track coaches, volunteers, etc. I guess what we're relying on is the ultimate database of the state criminal records, federal criminal records, the access that the state police have to check one's criminal background. So I thought it was a great point, Laura, and the story made that point, was that not every database is going to be broad enough to catch every potential problem in the coaching or instructor world. So let's just have everybody do a criminal background check. Do it once a year. It's pretty simple. It's fairly inexpensive, and it'll allay a lot of the concerns, I think, and hopefully clean up this terrible trend that NJ.com uncovered.
Yeah, I mean, keeping our children safe, I can't think of any bigger priority, but I think a lot of people might say, all right, what is the time? What is the cost? Do these school districts, do these organizations, do they have the resources? Because, again, a lot of them are running on volunteers.
Right. Yeah, I think it's fairly inexpensive, on the order of, under $100, maybe $50 to get a background check on a single coach. If you've got 12 kids on a team, that's less than $5 a kid to make sure that the coach is cleared. If you're a teacher, for example, and have a criminal background check through the school, and you want to go coach a club team or a volunteer for your kids, that background check should count for the volunteer coaching activity, or even the paid coaching activity. So I was sensitive to that too, Laura, that you don't want to ensnare these groups in red tape.
Right.
Many of the best organizations are already doing it as a matter of course. Others are going to have most of their coaches covered because they're already teachers or policemen or firemen or whatever, and they've got clean criminal background check health already. And then it's the others, so you're trying to fill in the gaps. It's a small inconvenience. It's a delay of, takes us several days to get it back from the state police. You fill out a form, you pay the fee, whatever it is, $50, $100. I don't even think it's $100. State police sends you back the report in a few days, and you're on your way. Not too intrusive. I think the cost is well worth it. When you talk about instructors getting $50, $60, $75, $100 an hour for sports instruction or piano instruction or whatever it is, if you've got a team of 12, 15 boys or girls in soccer or basketball or baseball paying fees to their organization to join the team, a small part of those dues goes to the background check on the coach. I think it's not burdensome at all, and well worth the protection of our kids and the peace of mind for parents.
And Assemblyman Jay Webber, thank you. And by the way, I should remind our audience, you're more than a lawmaker. You're a dad and a volunteer coach as well. So this is personal for you.
It is. Yeah. I care very much about the issue, and we'll try to move it forward.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Laura. Good to see you.
You too. Thanks for staying with New Jersey Politics. I'm Laura Jones, and New Jersey is taking a step towards modernizing how we audit elections. A new bill from State Senator Andrew Zwicker just cleared the Senate State Government Committee, and the goal is to make post-election audits more efficient, secure, and transparent. Senator Zwicker joins me now. Thank you so much for being here. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me, Laura.
Absolutely. Well, let's start with the basics. Why do you feel it was time to update how we audit elections? Pretty much, what wasn't working in the current process?
Look, first of all, let's start with the fact that New Jersey has one of the most secure election systems in the country. And that is due to the 21 county clerks and the 21 county election officials and all the dedicated workers that are working every single election to ensure that we have open, safe, transparent elections. This is just simply modernizing that. The idea that we only could hand count is going back to the time when we didn't have secure machines that would enable us to do this faster, to do this more securely, and to do this more transparently. And so this bill is a simple modernization bill.
Yeah. Well, so the bill would bring in a third-party electronic machine to help with the audits. And that is a big shift from the hand-to-eye method that we use now. So why do you think the machines are actually better?
So it's a different machine than the machines that have been used to actually tally the election. These are machines that have gone through a rigorous safety and cybersecurity check. And so by doing that and then posting all of this information on a publicly accessible website, we're more transparent and we're more efficient.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating to be able to, like what is in place already. You can actually follow your ballot to see how it moves along in the process. But we've got early voting, we've got vote by mail, in person, we've got ballots coming every which way. So how does the legislation make sure that every type of ballot is audited fairly and securely?
So all those different ways you talked about, that's how people vote going in. And what this says is before we certify the election, let's just make sure. And so it says, it doesn't change this, we already do this, 2% of the total ballots have to be randomly audited. So this is just a final security check. And we just are switching this to be machine as opposed to only hand counted. But also it's optional. We do allow folks to still hand count, we're just adding the machine.
Okay, all right. Now, as I understand it, the bill drops some of the technical audit requirements and replaces them with the public comment process. So can you talk a little bit about that change and how it builds more trust in the system?
Sure. So we used to be very prescriptive in how we did the statistics of the randomization and how much of the total vote tally to audit to ensure we were counting enough votes to know that we had done this properly and we could certify the election. So rather than be prescriptive now, we're also allowing experts to modernize how they do this auditing tally. But they can't do this in a closed room. When they make these decisions, it all goes up on a website. It allows the public to check in on this, to check everything, to ensure, again, that what's happening as we move forward is the most secure, valid audit possible.
Yeah, can you talk just a little bit from your perspective, depending on what county you're in, you never know what races are going to be closer than others, but, on election day, it inevitably, whether you're a voter or where you're sitting on a news desk, some county clerks have an easier time than others. We don't want to criticize anybody, but can you just talk about, does each county clerk do things a little bit of a different way? Like, how's it going now? And, you represent, your district's part of Hunterdon County. So can you just talk a little bit about how each county kind of does it now? Have you been talking with the county clerks? What are they saying?
I work closely with the county clerks in all of the bills that I've done around improving our elections. And you're right, each county has the flexibility to do it how they see best, how they get their votes out. But the most important thing here is that every single New Jersey person who votes has their vote counted, and it's an accurate count. And so I am so unbelievably impressed by our various county election workers and the clerks because they know their county. They know what's best to make sure that this is the desired outcome, and then they go ahead and they do that. And, unlike what we read in newspapers, they do that without any partisanship, without any of the things that we see happening at a national level.
Yeah, you know what? I speak from experience here. Whenever I've had to call the county clerk, whatever clerk it's been, and I've dealt with Mercer County Clerk, Hunterdon County Clerk, they're amazing. Their depth of knowledge, what they have, and the fact that they pick up the phone, it's pretty impressive.
Look, I represent pieces of 4 counties, so I have 4 county clerks. I think I have 4 of the best county clerks, not in the state, but in the country, including, I will also say, the county election officials that help support the clerk. It is genuinely an impressive system. Most people don't see what's happening behind the scenes. They go to vote in June or in November every single year. But we really do have an incredible infrastructure, and it's due to the people who are working so hard to ensure the integrity of our elections.
Right, and there's a lot at stake. We've got a governor's race coming up, obviously, in November. The state assembly, they're all up. We also have some other local races going on. So can you talk a little bit about the timeline of this bill? Are you trying to get this done before November? Like, when would we expect to see changes if it does pass? And,
Right.
what are your colleagues in the legislature saying?
Well, a couple things. So it's come out of committee in a bipartisan, unanimous manner. So there's no partisanship around this bill. Everybody agrees this is the right thing to do. We are in the last week of June, the last week of the budget cycle, and so everyone is focused on the budget itself. So then after we're done with the budget by Monday, we go on our summer hiatus. So the chances of getting this done between now and Monday, to be very frank and honest, are pretty slim. But getting this done by the end of the year is my goal, and then to ensure that it goes into next year's election, and we'll make that reform then.
Well, I mean, these are some of the issues that really they don't always get the headlines because, it's budget season or we have national issues that are overshadowing. Are there other bills, other pieces of legislation that you're working on that you're just thinking, gosh, I really wish this would get a little oxygen because there is so much happening at the national level. We do have a governor's race, and the legislature, the state assembly, is up for re-election.
Yeah, I think the number one bill I have after this is related to the fact that our gubernatorial election includes a sitting member of Congress. And if Mikey Sherrill is successful in November, that'll open up her seat at a time when the House of Representatives in DC has a very slim majority, Republican majority, and every single vote matters. I want to ensure that if she wins, that we fill that seat so the people of her district are represented as quickly as possible. And so I have a bill that we're working through the system right now to ensure that we can keep that gap, if she wins, to as small of a period of time as possible.
Yeah, and one of the things that that I was, when we were doing our election night coverage here, is when you're a sitting member of Congress, you don't have to give that seat up while you're running for office. Are you concerned that, again, I'm not trying to get partisan here, but do you, whenever anybody is in office and they're running for something else, are you concerned about their ability to show up and actually still represent the people of the district, knowing Mikey Sherrill's district is not the district that you represent or that you are in?
Look, what I've seen from her, but from every other member of the Senate and House of Representatives, is the number one thing they put in front of them is to represent the people. And so I'm not concerned about that. I'm just concerned that we make sure that all of our seats are filled as quickly as possible.
So when it comes to the U.S. Senate, when somebody resigns or has to leave office, passes away in office, those seats are replaced. The governor appoints somebody, but when it comes to Congress, those seats can sit vacant. And we've seen it happen here in New Jersey. Menendez left office, then we had Andy Kim's seat open. That was during an active campaign, but are you looking at other states that might do it better than we do? Because those seats, they can stay vacant until the next election cycle.
Yeah, and so it's a constitutional issue where the governor can appoint a member of the U.S. Senate, but cannot just simply appoint someone to the House of Representatives. And so the goal here is to take our existing system, which is unique, right? New Jersey has a unique system, and we have elections every single year, including for the House of Representatives every other year, but then our state election on the odd years. And how can we shrink that as small as possible? So it's not 6 months or 9 months or a year, but maybe it's 6 to 8 weeks, 10 weeks or something like that. And so we work closely with the county clerks to ensure that we can do New Jersey's election process in as short of a time frame as possible. And that's what the bill is doing.
Yeah, and would that actually require a constitutional change? And again, are you looking at other states that have this already in place that we can say, hey, here's the blueprint, here's how we can follow it and make it as efficient as possible? Because we want our representation.
Right, exactly. So we looked at states all around New Jersey, and there's a variety of different systems, but we said, okay, fine, here's how they're doing it. Here's our system. Let's compress that. And that's what we've done.
Okay. Well, State Senator Andrew Zwicker, thank you so much for helping us understand everything that's going on right now with elections. We always appreciate speaking with you. It's so good to see you.
Thank you, Laura. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And that's going to do it for today. I'm Laura Jones. Thanks so much for watching New Jersey Politics. We look forward to seeing you back here next time.